Look ahead into next week and the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. It seems I don't see anything really setting in and staying for us, which you would expect as you move into spring season. But overall, here we're going to see a trend for these storms to work their way through here, and of course, working with the cold air. We'll get some snow mixing in at times. And of course, as you know, with spring, it doesn't stick around as long. But NOAA did update their outlook here for the spring outlook. This was actually just a recent update, and their indication is above normal temperatures, or precipitation rather, above normal precipitation for our region, the Great Lakes region. Here as we go to March, April, and May. So this is just an outlook again, and this will be a mix of rain and snow for us at first. Now, when it comes to the actual temperature as you get into March, April, and May, and again, this is NOAA's outlook. A better chance of having below normal temperatures as you push your way across northern Minnesota, the northwestern Great Lakes. We're in that equal chances category where the above normal temperature chance increases across the southwestern United States. And this actually does make a lot of sense to us here as we get into this back and forth pattern. So I think we're going to see a lot of fluctuations going back and forth. Now, Craig, you, of course, have been really working into where we've sat this winter and, of course, where we may be going by looking at a history of years throughout the years with a La Nina to an El Nino pattern, Greg.
That is correct, Paul. And so we're going to start with talking about what La Nina really is and what that means for us. So as we take a look at water temperatures, so a La Nina temperature or La Nina pattern is when those temperature anomalies are varying from normal is in those eastern Pacific waters. You see that area of blue there where those water temperatures are about 0 to 1 degree below the average. That is when we see a La Nina pattern. But also you do notice there's a lot of warm water around there too compared to average. So as of February 19th, you can definitely tell that maybe that warm water is trying to kind of make its way back in compared to normal. And so that would be a transition over to a neutral and eventually into an El Nino pattern. So that is what the forecast is from NOAA. As you can see here, looking at the bottom, you're seeing those letters JFM, FMA. Those are the months. So JFM, January, February, and March. So you see the La Nina, of course, being extremely favored there with the blue. Notice as we get later into the year, into the springtime especially, that the gray bar becomes more prominent. And that is because we're expecting that cooler water in the eastern Pacific to abate a bit. And that means that we're looking for that transition over to an El Nino pattern. And as you can see, going into the later months of the year, especially as we get to that JAS, which is July, August, and September, and then eventually into the fall, that an El Nino pattern becomes a bit more favored here here across the country. And that is a little bit different of a change from the January forecast. And you can see there, I have the percentages of neutral and El Nino there on the left panel. So April, May, June, this is for the spring and summer. You can see that the neutral pattern was favored at 70%. Now you look at the February forecast, of course, now that we're closer to those months, it has jumped to a 92% probability of the neutral conditions staying favored. But one of the reasons why I put this graphic together is just to show you that it looks like the El Nino is going to try to take a little longer to get here. Notice that June, July, August timeframe in the January forecast, it was 50%. That jumped down to 42% probability as we get into the summer. So what that means for us is that it looks like we're going to stay a little bit neutral. We're going to stay in this neutral phase a little bit longer. So out of the years that this did happen where the neutral phase held on through mid and late summer and eventually became an El Nino, this is what those years were, 1976, 2009, and 2018. You can kind of see two of those years were warm and dry, comparatively speaking, to normal. And one of those years was cool, also snowy, 2018, and wet as well. So you could see that there's no real correlation there. There's some years that are a little warmer and drier, some years that are a little snowier and wetter. And that's just because those El Nino and La Nina and neutral patterns don't hold as much prominence in those transition seasons like they do in the spring or in the winter time especially. So those are some of the years that look like they may be similar to what is going to be happening this year. And then we kind of just look back. I also look back at some of the extremes for the springtime and the warmest spring. That was for the La Nina throughout most of the year. So that is not what is expected this year. The coldest spring was also a La Nina, though, but it was on the weaker side, and that was through the entire year. Now, our wettest spring was a weak and moderate La Nina as well throughout the year. So again, none of those really fit, at least for what we're expecting this year. The moderate El Nino through the year was the snowiest spring. So again, none of those are really La Nina going into a neutral phase. But again, we are in a La Nina phase, at least for the first part of spring. So that was a little interesting tidbit there to kind of look back at some of those spring extremes and kind of to show you where we may be going in terms of at least one of those connections. There's, of course, many other ones that we talk about with those seasonal forecasts too,
Yeah.
Paul.